Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Boardroom Beats. I'm Amreen Mulla, the Associate Editor at CXO Experts, and your host for the day. Today, we are privileged to host Mr. Aditya Mishra, the Chief Data Officer at SBM Bank. Mr. Aditya brings over 22 years of experience in data strategy and governance across the banking and fintech domain. He has been instrumental in driving major data transformation projects and establishing robust governance frameworks that align with global standards. So, today we'll be exploring the critical role of data governance in banking, uncovering how strategic data management supports compliances and also enhances decision making and fosters innovation in customer services. So, Mr. Aditya, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much, the entire CXO experts team, I would say, and thank you special to you and for hosting me. Yeah, love to basically share my knowledge and experience in the session today. Yeah, looking forward for it. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So let's start with the topic on, compliance. How do banks align their data governance frameworks with dynamic global regulatory changes to ensure, continuous compliance?
Sure. So I would like to share some the past, present, and the future. I won't say, but future is future, but past and present, the happenings in this space.
Mhm.
So if you see, like earlier, at least I have seen in my career, like when I started, of course, that is almost 2 decades back. Compliance was just a kind of a tick the box item, that you will have some certain point of checklist. I'm saying especially in the BFSI sector, right?
Mhm.
Because we never had digital disruption, and all this fintech evolution in the banking sector, especially I'm talking about. And we used to take compliance just kind of a tick the box kind of a thing, where basically, let's say if I'm onboarding a customer, the customer name, address, blah blah, the things are okay, and then I'm onboarding the customer. But now the trend is like, if you're seeing, if you're following the news in the past, the regulators' expectations is very very different. The way the digital disruption is happening in India as such, and the kind of demographics where the banking sector is operating in India. Now, with this digital disruption, the expectation from the regulator is totally different as far as banks maintaining the compliance is concerned. So,
Mhm.
what exactly the expectations of the regulator are on this? Is number one, that as because it's a banking is a regulated entity, so I would say the regulated entities are expected to have full details of their customers. Now, with the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, the data privacy thing, the consent management of the customers, the data protection of the customers are absolutely vital. So this is a very recent paradigm shift from the way we used to handle compliance earlier versus now. So therefore, you have seen the regulator putting hefty fines. I don't want to name any regulated entity as such, but I think you are aware it's in the public domain. The kind of penalties the regulator has basically imposed in these entities, right? So, what is the message? The message is that the regulator is absolutely in a non-tolerable mode. So, if you are not adhering to the guidelines, especially be it like KYC, be it like customer onboarding, be it like selling the right product to the customer, basically avoiding mis-selling, and then basically submitting all the returns. Like for example, the banks are expected to submit. There are depends like RBI has mandated, the Reserve Bank of India and the Ministry of Finance. They have mandated around 125 returns to be submitted to the regulator on a periodic basis, and it is basically a first time right kind of a data submission. So for that matter, a regulator has created a specialized platform submission. It is called it centralized information management system. So banks are expected to submit all the returns, all the data, all the reports to RBI, using this platform. So so to conclude, if you see this shift from last 10, 15 years, it's a huge shift. And in the years to come, I would say, of course, the banks has increased their budget now into the compliance related activities. So banks are adopting good systems now to, not from a data perspective, I'm talking about, of course. that A, capture the right data, process the right data, and disseminate the right data. So having a right data governance framework, and data governance framework is not that what exactly you want to govern, why you want to govern, what data you want to govern, what exactly the right governance KPIs are, what exactly the governance frameworks are. So these are basically the expectations from the regulator, and of course, we are working aggressively basically on this line to ensure the business continuity on this space. Yeah,
Mhm.
I hope that answers your question.
Yes, yes, of course.
Yes,
So, when
sure.
we're talking about data governance strategies, I believe that integration of analytics and machine learning is somewhat important. So, in what ways are advanced analytics and machine learning being integrated into data governance strategies to enhance accuracy and decision making?
Absolutely. See, you have to understand two things here. Number one, the data and information maturity of the entities, varies from one to one. Like for example, Bank A, their data and information maturity will totally vary from data, from basically, Bank B. So
Mhm.
as a first step, because your analytics and machine learning and AI is the basically last leg of your data, journey, right? If you have to
Mhm.
start from this way. So basically, it is important to basically assess the data and information maturity of the entity. I would say I'm not calling it bank. I'm calling it regulated entity because that is where the governance lies more. So the regulated entities once we assess the data and information maturity, that where exactly the entity is in terms of managing their enterprise data management. So
Mhm.
once that is sorted, then we define the entire data governance framework. Because see, data governance is generally in India, I've seen people take it like just as a theoretical kind of a thing. It's just a kind of talking point, and just as I said, like tick the box kind of a thing, which is not the case right now. So therefore now, like I'm just giving an example. Like for example, I'm expected to basically maintain the customer's Aadhaar number in an Aadhaar vault. So am I doing it? Like for example, Aadhaar number is a very it's a mandate from UID that I need to basically respect the data, right? And second thing, whenever I'm processing the data, how exactly I'm processing? Am I taking the entire Aadhaar number and then processing it with my mainstream data, or I am keeping it in my database and assigning some number? Like for example, I'm storing your Aadhaar number, but at the same time, I'm just creating a dummy key, okay? Like for example, your name, and then there's a dummy key, and that dummy key I'm using it for all my reporting, analytics, machine learning, and other processes. So that way, I'm ensuring that your data is safe. I'm not compromising the expectation and your privacy part of it. So these are just giving a basic example that how exactly I am maintaining my data governance thing on the real ground. Now, this is for the banks or entities where they don't have an Aadhaar vault kind of, because implementing an Aadhaar vault is a very costly affair, and most of the entities, if they have not budgeted for it, they will have to manage like this. But the entities who have a Aadhaar vault, they can basically easily store it in the Aadhaar vault, and the vault number they can use it for the downstream, data processing. So this is just an example. So we have many more cases like this, like other PII data, SPDI data, like customer name, mobile number, PAN number, and other key parameters. How exactly the basically the gender part of it, income part of it, all those things. I'm storing it, processing it, and then basically kind of using it. Now, when it comes to analytics, machine learning, and AI, if you know, like there are four stages of any analytics we do, right? Descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive, right? That is the four stages on which this is the life cycle of any analytics you do. But I have seen by and large most of the banks and regulated entities, they do descriptive and diagnostics only, right? When you do predictive and prescriptive, that time we have to use a lot of these heavy machine learning models and the AI models. Like for example, I'm talking about the behavioral scorecard, like how exactly the customer's behavior has changed over the past 10 years or 5 years, because that I will use all for all my marketing purposes, all my market basket analysis in terms of bundling the right product along with the core product, and changing my basically the total relationship value that particular customer maintains with the bank. So how to basically increase the more penetration, and basically uh, the more the profitable venture using the fee income and other things. So there, basically, I use most of my models, and of course, that is where basically I have to be very, very careful when I am processing the PII data, because I have to, because these days the regulator are giving guidelines in terms of how exactly the machine learning model should behave, what exactly the, I think there is a lot of discussion between good AI and bad AI in the market. I think you are aware, right? So what
Yes.
exactly the good AI is, and I'm saying good meaning, good meaning the by basically complying to the regulator's expectation, and they're running it on my customer base. Because see, we have to understand one thing at the end of the day, that it is the public's money basically on which basically we are sitting on. It's basically public's data, right? So therefore, treating that data with utmost respect is the basically need of the hour. So just for the basically sake of providing a better customer experience, things should not get compromised. There has to be a balanced trade-off between the customer experience and the governance thing. There should not be any compromise on it. That's the point basically I'm just trying to highlight.
Yes. So,
Yep.
sir, like you spoke about security and how it is important to secure the customer's data in particular. Since again, it's a matter of money over here, it's a matter of finances. So, what other innovative practices have banks adopted to, manage the balance between data accessibility for multiple business users and also, the stringent data security measures that are required to be in any company in a BFSI sector.
See, the banks are doing it in a two-way, because every bank has their own marketing, sales team, the customer experience team, because these are the teams, the customer service team, these teams are definitely there. So basically, to answer your question, now it is very, very important for the banks also to assess that what exactly the customer's real pain points are. And that is one. Second thing, the customer who is basically posting any feedback or his or her experience in the social media, right?
Mhm.
So as a bank, I must know that how exactly my products or as an entity I am perceived in the customer world. That is
Mhm.
one. Second point is basically, these days the dark web is very, very prominent these days, right? For
Yeah.
example, there are a lot of critical data exposed in the dark web. Now
Mhm.
as a bank, and I'm just saying this is which I am doing right now in the bank. Okay. So basically, a lot of my customers' interest. I'm not specifying any particular business items here, but the interests are basically kind of I could see in the dark web, and I know that that particular person is a customer of mine, right? So
Mhm.
therefore, how exactly I am reaching to my customer? Like for example, I'm just giving an example that you are holding a premium card from me, right? And
Mhm.
then I know that your card number is exposed in the dark web, because with your name, with your of course mobile number, and because card number is of course masked, but I have my analytics through which I can find out from your various permutation and combination that it is you, that your data is basically present in the dark web. So therefore, as a bank, what I should do now? So so currently, what the practice we are following is, of course, the regulator also encourages this, that okay, I'm reaching proactively to you saying that hey, your card is compromised because we have found your card in the dark web. Therefore, we are blocking all your card relationships, and then I'm basically issuing a fresh card, with a fresh CVV and other information, and then I'm basically giving it to you. So this is an example where I am kind of meeting or exceeding my customer experience, along with securing all the data aspect of it of yours, and then basically kind of ticking all the boxes from this perspective. So this
Mhm.
is a classic example where I'm using heavy data lifting, heavy data analytics using AI and ML, and kind of solving the particular thing. There
Mhm.
could be many other things.
Yeah, that is quite interesting. So, and like, can you detail how data governance also supports customer-centric initiatives in banking, particularly when it comes to improving personalized services?
See, that's what I'm saying. So in the name of hyper personalization or customer experience, basic things can't be compromised. And I won't say that it is. So basically, to augment my statement, if suppose someone is saying, because it's a debate talking among the bankers I have seen, because I have attended a lot of these banking summits and all, where people are saying that in the true customer centric world, because we are not living in a product centric world, it's a customer centric world. So in a customer centric world where basically I am trying to differentiate my product and services, improving the customer experience, and at the same time I need to basically manage and maintain all my data governance, it is difficult to. That's the basically response I get, because if you are doing a lot of customer data governance, then your customer experience is getting compromised because you are not able to do that. But my view is totally different. That yes, though we are in a regulated world, but it is definitely possible to provide the right and expected or kind of elevated customer experience, keeping all the items of the data governance part of it. The important thing is that how do you basically do that? How do you implement it? And that is
Mhm.
linked to your assessing your data and information maturity. Because I have seen people are not storing the data in the right manner. So when you don't know what exactly you're residing in your data systems, when you don't know what is the metadata, what is the customer metadata, where is the customer master data lying? Because of course, we banks have various systems for various things. Like for example, for loans there will be a different system. For onboarding there will be a different system. For customer service different system. Cards different system. So a plethora of systems. Now, how in all these systems customer data is stored, right? So how exactly all these things are basically integrated and linked to your one customer view, which is basically your master data for doing all your kind of driving all your customer experience related activities. So this is a journey. That's what I'm saying. So it's not like 1 day or 2 day affair where basically you just stitch to it and then it happens. It doesn't happen that way. You have to
Mhm.
onboard all the various departments, operations as such, risk, and then basically the relevant data teams basically can stitch all these things together, and then they can embark their data journey with respect to customer experience. So
Mhm.
that is how basically I have been doing it. But uh, to conclude, yes, it is possible to basically do a very good customer experience related activities, keeping the compliance in heart
Mhm.
at
So,
heart
sir,
at heart.
so
Yeah.
so far we have discussed about, structured data in terms of, what the customer provides us. However, like how do banks handle the governance of unstructured data? For example, if it comes in a form of social media or customer interactions to enhance customer relationship management. So how can, the banks like, for example, like you mentioned on Twitter, we can see a lot of people, sending their queries, sending in their grievances or whatever it is over social media. So they do end up sharing sometimes their own personal data as well over social media. So how do banks ideally go across this issue?
Yeah. So see, social media, when you say unstructured data, which is not two-dimensional, because the structured data is always two-dimensional in a row and column, and it is very easy to manage because A, the volumes and other things and all can be easily managed. With unstructured data, because since it is unstructured, you have plethora of it, and there are a lot of garbage also. So
Mm-hmm.
so the life starts from how do you basically kind of identify that what data you need from the social media tag, or I would say unstructured data. What portion you need and what portion you don't need. Because the portion you don't need, there is no point in basically keeping it because it is always garbage in and garbage out otherwise. And once you integrate this with the mainstream data, and if the data is wrong, then it will be nightmare to basically derive the right analytics and insights out of it. I'm talking about the business insights out of it. It's like keeping the weed out with. So that's the starting point, right? Of course, if you want to do a true customer sentiment analysis, I'm just making it up actually. So in the Twitter, the business objective is to find out how exactly my customer sentiments are, and I am expected to create a customer sentiment score as such. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, let's say if I need to do that, then I have to see in the social media what kind of the data elements are, identifying those data elements patterns, and then once I have identified through that, then basically I will store it in my main these days we have various storage mechanisms. So in our bank we primarily use cloud services. We have our own private cloud. So we use our private cloud to basically store and process this data because it is always good to scale up and scale down because cloud provides that benefit, right? So
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, if you store this in your on-prem databases, it's a very costly affair. And of course, you have to put one person single or 2% depending on the volume and
Mm-hmm.
complexities, and then you have to basically do it. So therefore, it's a very classic use case for using cloud services. Doesn't matter if it is a public cloud or private cloud, but yeah, we use private cloud because we don't have an option to basically use public cloud for this. So use it, then basically clean the data, and then basically kind of integrate the data with the other patterns to identify the customer. Because of course there are other fields I need to integrate to identify the right customer with the customer base which I am maintaining and managing, and then basically running my creating my customer CVS, whatever you call it, the customer value score or customer sentimental score, and then measuring what exactly the feedbacks and the other things are, and then passing it to the basically the compliance team and the marketing team or basically the relevant other stakeholders to basically take the corrective and necessary action to this case. That is one case. Second case is, of course, there are a lot of ATM related frauds are happening, right? I think you are aware that there are basically, especially these are cases from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So through the data and analytics, we find like which ones are my compromised ATMs, because we have those video data, because every ATM, at least in our bank, we have mandated the position of the camera. So the camera is positioned. So we so the it's the data center guys. They track it very closely in the moment of all the customers who are coming in, the kind of activity they are performing, whether anything suspicious. So we have given our rules and engines right at the ATM. So if there are any outliers, directly it comes to our information repositories, and we immediately take that action. So these are basically kind of identifying proactively the point of compromised locations, especially in the ATM world, and reaching out to the right competent authorities to take the necessary action. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be the behavior, certain behavior of the no. It could be anybody, like someone unattended person is coming, or someone is there in the ATM or not to take care of it. Now, what kind of activities people are doing there? Are they fixing something there to compromise the ATM or some things like that? So through data, we are basically kind of governing it, and this is a classic use case of using unstructured data to prevent fraud. Actually, here in this ATM related. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, while we are speaking about unstructured data, also there has to be like some sort of data governance on an international scale regarding structured data as well. So, what
Yeah.
specific risks are associated with data governance in cross-border banking operations, and how are these addressed?
Sure. So if you know, the regulator has created an entity called FIU, that is called Fraud Intelligence. It is with, I think it is managed by Ministry of Finance, Home Affairs, and RBI, of course. So FIU have ensured that, so there is a specific report actually which RBI needs, which is called CBWTR, Cross Border Wired Transactions. This is a dedicated report actually it is required. Now in that, what I'm reporting basically the kind of where exactly I am doing the transactions. Am I doing all my international transactions to the allowed countries? Because there are, because of course Ministry of Home Affairs, they always publish a list of countries where basically you can do cross border transaction, and the countries where you are not supposed to. So therefore, are you, that is the first step, that whether all the international transactions are happening to the regulated or to the allowed countries or not. That is one. Second thing, what are the volumes of the transactions? Are these transactions are via some kind of an e-commerce activities, or the merchant customer code, or the customer is physically in those countries and using the bank provided product to do the transactions and doing the financial activities there. Third thing, of course, you know that there is a LRS, like liberalized remittance scheme, right? Wherein basically the customer is supposed to spend, not, I don't know the limit right now, but I think it is 7,000 USD, not more than that. I'm not wrong. I'm not able to remember the actual figure, but there is a limit actually on the spend in terms of USD you do overseas. It is basically, so these are the basically checks and the data governance which we are taking, because if it is, let's say, more than the accepted amount in USD, the spending amount I'm talking about, then we need to report, and basis that the tax calculation at source is applied. So
Mhm.
TCS is applied to those customers, and then basically accordingly the things are achieved. So the point is that yes, of course, there are a lot of data governance. These are the examples which we are doing for all the cross-border transactions.
Mhm. So, with the rise of blockchain, how is this technology exactly fitting into the landscape? Like, utilizing blockchain technology with their data governance frameworks, how are banks looking to improve data integrity and transparency?
Absolutely. So see, of course, it's an innovative world, and then a lot, as I said, a lot of disruptions are happening in the financial world, and it will continue to happen. So blockchain is one of them. But now we are also, just for the sake of use case, it is not going to basically do well. Now, in terms of, like, for example, there is a lot of experiment happening on the e-rupee kind of a thing, and I'm sure you are aware that the regulator has mandated three banks
Yeah.
to basically do this pilot, right? In terms of e-rupee, and they are using blockchain extensively. So I'm also in that particular project actually, because they have created a consortium of bankers who are basically kind of doing this, and I'm also basically part of that uh, uh, that POC, whatever we can proof of concept, you can say, which we are doing, and that is where basically we are trying to find out what will work, what will not work, what are the basically good use cases. Because ultimately, what you need to basically process the, it is basically all related to processing your data. Basically, if you have to do this, because processing gives you the capability in terms of what exactly knowing the ground, in terms of what exactly the realities are, and then accordingly you basically bind all the other associatives and relatives to it. Basically, that's the
Mhm.
thing. Whether so, blockchain is also trying to do that. But in terms of a regulated entity, as you mentioned, that what exactly the right governance framework, where basically the blockchain related technology and the concept will basically fit into the mainstream technologies, that is something we have to watch out for. And there are a lot of heavy investing basically going on in the banks. But yeah, in the years to, or in the months to come, you will see a lot of traction basically in this space.
Mhm.
If the e-rupee thing is successful, then their entire gamut of your cash management solution itself is going to go change, right?
Mhm.
Where all the transaction will be happening
Yeah.
via this e-rupee framework. Yeah.
Mhm. So
Yeah.
just like blockchain, I believe cloud services is also a solution that has come up in the past decade and has been increasingly been adopted by various banks. So what impact has the increasing shift towards cloud solutions had on data governance in banking? And what steps are being taken to mitigate the associated security risks that come with it?
Right. So basically, see, cloud journey, it's a journey basically. When you say cloud, I'm basically adopting cloud for my data and information management services. It's a journey. It's not that the one day I decide that, I will move all my data to cloud and it happens. It doesn't happen that way. So basically, in my experience, I have seen that we first step is to basically create a proper, the what do you call it, the SOPs basically, right? What exactly the right SOPs are in terms
Mhm.
of moving standard operating process. I'm talking about the SOPs are in terms of basically first a what all data you want to basically move to cloud.
Hmm.
Not all data or all services you will move to cloud. In
Hmm.
our case, the actual use case for cloud is basically move all your unstructured data. There is no point in basically moving your structured data, like for example data from your core banking, yeah,
Hmm.
or your from wealth and investment management data into cloud. That's basically my view. There could be another thing, but I don't see moving that data is making any sense. Why?
Hmm.
Because cloud, why we move mainly for two reasons. One, I can scale up fast, and when I don't need, I can basically shut down my services. It's a basically pay per use model, right? Because
Hmm.
not necessary that all my data, whatever in the public domain, I will use all the time. It is not the case. I might use it for one or two use cases, and then I don't want to basically use it. Now,
Hmm.
if you do that in your on-prem database, it will be huge cost because you have to keep it like, and then after that, you don't know what exactly you do with the data. You have to basically archive it, put it in a costly tapes because you have to retain it for a stipulated amount of years as per regulator, right? So therefore, you have to identify all these things, keeping in mind the cost part of it, because of course there are no free lunches in the world. So you, of course, everybody is tightened by their budget. According to your budget,
Hmm.
how exactly basically you want to control the data growth, and then accordingly start the cloud journey. And when you decided that okay, this part of this segment of basically data set I will move into cloud, the next step is to identify what exactly my PII and SPDI data are, like what exactly, and how do I basically store it. Because of course cloud service providers, they have their own security mechanisms. But as a bank, but what exactly your security mechanisms are you using the kind of a kind of a data encryption technologies, or if you are using data encryption technology, what exactly it is like, is it like a public key, private key, where exactly you are storing your private key and public keys, all these things come into the picture. This is on top of it basically, along with the cloud service providers data protection mechanisms I'm talking about. And then basically you move it to the cloud, store it, process it, and then once you process, then get the data into your with your mainstream data and do your further dissemination, and then close it. If you don't need it, just archive the data. You have two options. You can use the service providers offer a lot of services these days, like for example Amazon. I have Amazon, we are using Glacier is basically used for the data which you don't need at all, for historical purposes. You can store it in Glacier for whatever period years you want, and the charges are basically, I would say, it's no to minimal. And then accordingly, whenever you need it, pull it out and put it in your mainstream data, and then you process it. So all these options are very much available. And the governance framework, as I said, it is linked with your particular SOP. What exactly your bank wants to basically do it. It can't be a generalized governance framework to manage data in the cloud. That's what my precise point. What exactly data you are putting it into the cloud, and accordingly you have to devise your governance framework, and then you have to control and then measure it and then basically report it. Because just defining the SOPs won't suffice. You have to basically assess it, measure it, and then keep it is a continuous process. Basically, you have to do it. And of course, banks does it because they have their risk-based supervision. It's a quarterly exercise. So in that exercise is basically kind of linked. I'm sure it is true with other banks as well.
Mhm. So,
Yeah,
while we're talking about like other banks and other fintechs that are there in the industry, how is the rise of fintech partnerships influencing the changes in traditional banks' data governance strategies? Since we can see a lot of neobanks and fintech partnerships showing up.
absolutely. So you have to see it's a partnership ecosystem basically, which we are trying to build now in this space. And the ultimate objective is what? The ultimate objective is basically taking the financial services to the last leg, right? Because for a bank, it is difficult to basically go to each and every corner of the country and provide the best of the best financial service. Now, because
Mhm.
you can't open branches, you can't open basically have all this, because of course you are also kind of, you have so much of things to manage. Now, in that management of things, because you have a legacy as well, this part is basically left out. So therefore, to take the financial offerings, product services to the last leg or last mile to the ecosystem, you have to take fintech approach because fintechs are the one who can basically employ with you, and then basically with that partnership model, the services can be taken to that leg. But having said that, there are a lot of things to govern because you have to understand at the end of the day that you have given your license to the fintech to sell your product and services to that leg. So, which
Mhm.
means what? Which means that the fintechs are onboarding the customers for you. A, they are identifying the customers. So, therefore, as a regulated entity, how much control you have to the fintech? It should not happen that way. That fintech is driving the bank, right? Because of course, I'm sitting at my central office. My fintech is in somewhere else, maybe in some other location, maybe in like I'm in Mumbai, my partner is in Bangalore or in Pune or in Chennai, right? And they are because of course it's a how to say it's a borderless world these days. There are no specific boundaries as such. But when it comes to data, we have to basically guardrail it because data certainly flows. We have to define those guardrails where exactly my data is basically flowing, and how much data the fintech is basically keeping it, and how much data the fintech is sharing it with me, or is it the fintech is basically keeping it with them and they are I'm not saying that they are doing it intensely, but are they basically selling it to others, other cross selling platforms and all? Because ultimately it is my customer the fintech has onboarded. So therefore it is my responsibility to protect the data, to protect the interest of that particular customer via the PII data and other SPDI data. So these are the basically things which basically we have to mandate it, and it is mentioned when the partnership model creates with the fintech in the SOP, that
Mhm.
because so we have to make it very very clear to the fintech that I am going to regulate you, I am going to basically audit you on this now,
Mhm.
right? Because if we don't do this, then the fintech will have his own wings to basically fly. So I could see a potential risk of the license is getting compromised because fintech doesn't have a license to operate. Fintech is
Mhm.
basically kind of associated with the bank and using the banking license given by the Reserve Bank of India, to do the banking or whatever the transaction.
Mhm.
So therefore, the obligation is on me to regulate the fintech and do it in a and we have like State Bank of like SBM Bank India, State Bank of Mauritius. We are doing it heavily actually on this because we have a very much fintech driven model wherein basically we are reaching out to our customers and customers and services using the fintech model, and it's really working well, and we could see that the a very good amount of customer experience in terms of selling the right product and services to the customer. But yeah, in the years to come, when where we will have more neo banks like this, it is important to have the right partnership framework with the fintechs, I would say, in terms of entire a not only the operational part of it, but in terms of data management part of, because data is the buzzword and data is the key thing on which in terms of all this selling and all this thing will happen. So therefore, the enterprise data management how exactly the data will be basically managed by these entities are important to basically kind of define and basically kind of make it explicit in your partnership framework or in your partnership agreement actually.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, sir, finally, what do you think in future, in the coming decades or so, what next big trend would go on in data governance? Like, what are new rules and laws or regulations that we can expect to change the landscape of BFSI sector?
So see, I think years are 10 years is a very long time. I would say every 6 months basically things are changing because of the technology disruption. So 10 years I would say is a very long time. Every 6 months there is a change. I would say every quarter there is a change. The way the regulator is basically, I think that the regulator has set up a dedicated information management team now. There are a lot of, I mean to say, the digital lending platforms are getting created. Now there is a rule from the regulator in terms of what exactly you are supposed to sell digitally. So there is a rule on the digital lending norm. They have defined it very, very clearly. So it is not that some kind of a master direction, but it is not like that. It is a thing, how to part of it, how exactly you are supposed to do sales digitally. So there is a basically framework around that. Now there is now in the month of February, the regulator has come out with a guideline in terms of what are the kind of submitting the right returns, what is how exactly your data and information governance architecture is aligned with your IT architecture. Because see, you can't simply, it is like this, you can't govern things where basically there's a lot of mess. Because let's say if you are trying to do a data governance framework on a messy data, how will you do it? Because you don't know where exactly what to govern, that what part will be totally mess, right? So
Mhm.
therefore, before creating the data governance framework itself, basically, as I said, you have to keep the house in order. Once the house is in order, then only basically you can apply all these things. So the point which I'm trying to highlight here is over the past of the, because this is basically a legacy problem, because all these things, as I said, it never used to exist. I would say 5 or 6 years back, right? So therefore, it's a change for everyone. Everybody is basically, it's a transformation going on right now. If you say in the banking industry as such, when basically we are trying to basically fit in into the expectation and and keeping it basically aligned to the regulator's expectation. But to give us to give an a kind of perspective to it, every quarter I'm seeing a change on this, and it will keep on doing it unless it reaches to some kind of a maturity. So your governance frameworks will also keep on evolving, because earlier we used to have public cloud, now there's a private cloud, now there's a hybrid cloud people are basically adopting. So in that hybrid cloud, your data governance approach will be totally different, right? Then you have got your mainstream data systems. Now the mainstream data systems also, there are a lot of disruptions happening, right? You're moving away from your traditional RDBMS world. So therefore your data storage, processing, all these things are also getting changed. The way the volumes of data are also basically getting increased, that's another part of the story. So all these things are, I would say, evolving. So you can't say that I have defined a framework now, governance framework, and let's like, kind of fit it. So and then you just forget it, because one size doesn't fits all. That's the point basically I'm trying to highlight. And same way your governance principles are also going to get involved in the months to come. I won't say years, I'm saying months to come, because the way the customer behavior is changing, the entire customer analytics journey itself is basically I would say in a very kind of a shift mode actually, from the product to customer centric world. Yeah.
So that was quite a learning opportunity here today, Mr. Aditya. Your insights
Sure.
today have been incredibly enlightening, it's not only for me, just also for our viewers. So thank you for sharing your deep knowledge and experiences. It has helped us understand the critical role of data governance in banking today. So thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
No, no, thank you very much for hosting me. It was very great to basically share my experience all together with the wider forum. So I hope people will basically take some sense out of it. So yeah, thank you very much.
Definitely, sir. So, to our viewers, thank you for joining us today on Boardroom Beats. Remember to subscribe for more discussions with industry leaders just like Mr. Aditya Mishra. Until next time, keep innovating and stay informed.